Good evening, sir. Good evening, Madam Gar. Valli Madam Gar. Good evening.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening, Madam Gar. Valli Madam Gar. Good evening, Madam.
Is busy with live streaming of Velta Forum, sir. That is why Madam is not talking immediately.
Okay, no problem, sir. We are all the family. One family. One nation.
Yeah,
One clarity.
we are on live now.
We are.
Yes, sir.
Madam is technically very sound, sir.
Yeah, sir. Interest is very important. Like-minded, right-minded people, we are all. Yes, sir. Amagaru.
Taranam, sir, I have posted the YouTube link.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. Very kind of you, ma'am. We will start, ma'am, immediately.
Yes.
Good evening, everybody. Hearty welcome to all of you, and I extend a hearty welcome to all of you for this 162nd Velta Forum's Faculty Development Program on English Language, Literature, Linguistics and Cultural Studies. Before we start the session, we will have the book review, that is Dr. Joseph Murphy's international bestseller, The Power of Your Subconscious Mind. From this book, we will have this 10th chapter's summary. Be bold enough to claim that it is you are right to be rich, and your deeper mind will honor your claim. You don't want just enough to go around. You want all the money, and you need to do all the things you want to do. And when you want to get acquainted with the riches of your subconscious mind, when the money is circulating freely in your life, you are economically healthy. Look at money like the tide. You will always have plenty of. The ebb and flow of the tide is constant. When the tide is out, you are absolutely sure it will return. Knowing the laws of your subconscious mind, you will always be supplied regardless of what form money takes. One reason many people simply ends meet and never have enough money is that they condemn money, and we shouldn't be doing this thing. Let us understand it. What you condemn takes wings and flies away. So we are not supposed to condemn. We should love money. That's why people know, those who run workshops on I love money, workshops on money, they say I love money, money loves me, like this. So it is a psychology. And do not make a do not make a god of money. It is only a symbol. Remember that the real riches are in your mind. You are here to lead a balanced life. This includes acquiring all the money you need. Don't make money your sole aim. Claim wealth, happiness, peace through expression, and love, and personally radiate love and goodwill to all. Then your subconscious mind will give you compound interest in all these fields of expression. There is no virtue in poverty. It is a disease of the mind, and you should heal yourself of this mental conflict or malady at once. You are not here to live in a hovel, to dress in rags, or to go hungry. You are here to lead the life more abundant. Never use the terms filthy, lucre, or I despise money. You lose what you criticize. Never. That's why people say that never criticize anybody or anything in this world. you lose whatever you criticize. There is nothing good or bad, but thinking of it in either light makes it so. Repeat frequently, I like money, I use it wisely, constructively, and judiciously. I realize it with joy and it returns 1,000-fold. Money is not evil anymore. Um, so then copper, lead, tin or iron, which you may find in the ground. All evil is due to the ignorance and misuse of the mind's powers. To picture the end result in your mind causes your subconscious to respond and fulfill your mental picture. Stop trying to get something for nothing. There is no such thing as a free lunch. You must give to receive. You must give mental attention to your goals, ideals, and enterprises, and your deeper mind will back you up. The key to wealth is application of the law of subconscious mind by impregnating it with the idea of wealth. Our primemost duty that we need to engage the mind with the positive thinking as well as positive thinking about money. Then again, profitable pointer. Success means successful living. When you are peaceful, happy, joyous, and doing what you love to do, doing what you love to do, and then you are successful. Find out what you love to do and then do it. If you don't know you true expression, ask for guidance, and the lead will come. Specialize in your specialize in your particular field and try to know more about it than anyone else. A successful man is not selfish. His main desire in life is to serve humanity. There is no true success without peace of mind. A successful man possesses a great psychological and spiritual understanding. If you imagine an objective clearly, you will be provided with the necessities through the wonder working power of your subconscious mind. Your thought fused with the feeling become a subjective belief, and according to your belief, belief is it is done unto you. The power the power of sustained imagination draws forth the miracle working powers of your subconscious mind. If you are seeking promotion in your work, imagine your employer, supervisor, or loved one congratulating you on your promotion. Make the picture vivid and real. Hear the voice, see the gestures, and feel the reality of it all. Continue to do this frequently, and through frequent occupancy of your mind, you will experience the joy of the answered prayer. Your subconscious mind is a storehouse of memory. For a perfect memory, affirm frequently. The infinite intelligence of my subconscious mind reveals to me everything I need to know at all times, everywhere. If you wish to sell a home or property of any kind, affirm slowly, quietly, and feelingly as follows. Infinite intelligence attracts to me the buyer for this house or property who wants it and who proposes it. Who prospers in it. Sustain this awareness. The deeper currents of your subconscious mind will bring it to pass. The idea of success contains all the elements of success. Repeat the word success to yourself frequently with faith and conviction, and you will be under subconscious compulsion to succeed. Scientists use the subconscious mind. Next chapter. Highlights to recall. You see the thing. This is remember that the mind has determined the success and wonderful achievements of all great scientific workers. By giving your conscious attention and devotion to the solution of a perplexing problem, your subconscious mind gathers all the necessary information and presents it full blown to the conscious mind. So, what we need to do is we need to think positively. If you are wondering about the answer to a problem, try to solve it objectively. Get all the information you can from research and also from others. If no answer comes, turn it over to your subconscious mind prior to sleep, and the answer always comes. It never fails. So, subconscious mind is benevolent. That's what in the NLP people say about. You do not always get the answer overnight. Keep on turning your request over to your subconscious mind until the day breaks and the shadows flee away. You delay the answer by thinking it will take that it is a major problem. Your subconscious has no problem with uh, no problem. It knows only the answer. Believe that you have the answer now. Feel the joy of the answer, and the way you would feel if you had the perfect answer. Your subconscious will respond to your feeling. Any mental picture, back and perseverance will come to pass through the miracle working power of your subconscious. Trust it, believe in its power, and wonders will happen as you pray. Your subconscious is the storehouse of memory, and within your subconscious are recorded all your experiences since childhood. Scientists meditating on ancient scrolls, temples, fossils, etc., are able to reconstruct scenes of the past and make them alive today. Their subconscious mind comes to their aid. Turn over your request for a solution to your trust it and believe in it, and the answer will come. It knows all and sees all, but you must not doubt or question its powers. The action is your thought, and the reaction is the response of your subconscious mind. If your thoughts are wise, your actions and decisions will be wise. Guidance comes as a feeling and an inner awareness and an overpowering hunch whereby you know that you know. It is an inner sense of touch, follow it. Summary of your aids to the wonders of sleep. If you are worried that you will not wake up on time, suggest your subconscious mind prior to sleep the exact time you wish to arise, and it will awaken you. It needs no clock. Do the same thing with all problems. This is nothing too hard for your subconscious. Your subconscious never sleeps. It is always on the job. It controls all your vital functions. Forgive yourself, everyone. Forgive yourself and everyone else before you go to sleep, and the healing will take place much more rapidly. Guidance is given you Guidance is given to you while you are asleep. Sometimes in a dream, the healing currents are also released, and in the morning you feel refreshed and rejuvenated. When you troubled by vexations of strife of the day, still the wheels of your mind and think about the wisdom and intelligence lodged in your subconscious mind, which is ready to respond to you. This will give you peace, strength, and confidence. Sleep is essential for peace of mind and health of body. Lack of sleep can cause irritation, depression, and mental disorders. Sleep. Medical research scholars point out that insomnia precedes psychotic breakdown. You are spiritually recharged during sleep. Adequate sleep is essential. Adequate sleep is essential for joy and vitality in life. Your tired brain craves sleep so hungrily that it will sacrifice anything to get it. Many who have fallen asleep at the wheel of an automobile can testify to this. Many sleep deprived people have poor memories and lack proper coordination. They become befuddled, confused, and disoriented. Sleep brings counsel. Prior to sleep, claim that the infinite intelligence of your subconscious mind is guiding and directing you. Then watch for the lead, which comes perhaps on the awakening. Trust your subconscious completely. Know that its tendency is always lifeward. Occasionally, your subconscious answers you in a very vivid dream and a vision in the night. You can be forewarned in a dream in the same way as the author of this book was warned. Your future is in your mind now. Based on your habitual thinking and belief, claim infinite intelligence leads and guides you, and that all good is yours, and your future will be wonderful. Believe in it and accept it. Expect the best, and invariably the best will come to you. If you are writing a novel, play or a book, or you are working on an invention, speak to your subconscious mind at night and claim boldly that its wisdom, intelligence, and power of guiding, directing, and revealing to you the ideal play, novel, book, or revealing perfect solution, whatever it may be. Wonders will happen as you pray this way. Thank you, everyone. Let me stop here. And I would like to take this opportunity to welcome our Sasireka Madam of MGR University. She is an assistant professor of English. She has a wide and rich experience, and we are so very happy to welcome you, Madam Sasireka Madam. Thanks for joining us on time, and without taking much of the time, I would hand over this. I would the presentation. Over to you, ma'am. Thank you, everyone, and thank you all for joining us on this wonderful day. And this FDP program is on English language, literature, and linguistic studies. And we are so very proud to have our Professor Sasireka ma'am, who was graciously consented to be today's presenter. And just she has agreed to speak on impact of pandemic literature. Over to Professor Sasireka Madam of MGR Educational and Research Institution, Madurai, Chennai, Tamil Nadu, India. Thank you, ma'am. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, sir. One
Gadget, ma'am. Only one gadget you can know. Increase the volume. The other one you can mute.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I decreased.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. Go ahead, ma'am. Go ahead.
Yes, sir.
Good evening, ma'am.
Good evening, ma'am. So, good evening, all of you. I would like to convey my thanks to Saravanan sir. So, he gave me the wonderful opportunity, and today he called me and asked, today you can take the session, ma'am. So, immediately I said, okay, because what happened, Akka? What happened? Saravanan sir, I know very well. And today I can take impact of pandemic literature. So this topic is everyone the research overall doing the research scholars, it will be very useful to you. And today I can take the session now, impact of pandemic literature. And what do you think about that? First of all, the pandemic literature. What are the causes and why it is necessary to take the topic today? What is the necessary? It is necessary. Anyone?
Absolutely, ma'am. It is necessary, ma'am, and essential, ma'am. We need to.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. It is necessary.
Yes. So it is necessary and it is essential too, because so nowadays everyone is affected and so many of the persons is affected by COVID-19, and that the literature peoples they have to enhance the language creativity in this pandemic situation to utilize the lockdown period. And language creativity like that poem writing, and so many of them is writing the poem and short stories, and that comes from great minds, and the novels and the articles. So everyone utilize in this pandemic situations and the lockdown period, and the language creativity, it's very much high level in this pandemic situations from the literature persons, right? It is correct. It is correct. Everyone can improve your literature knowledge.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. Okay. So I can share the screen to you. Impact of pandemic literature PPT. So, first of all, I can introduce myself, Shashireka, Assistant Professor of English and Dr. MGR Educational and Research Institute. So, today we are going to see the impact of pandemic literature. So, education is the most powerful weapon. We can use it, change the world, because we are all the literature peoples. and that introductions, impact of education in literature during plague period, and that impact of literature during COVID-19, and after that conclusions and today's agendas. Okay. So first of all, we have to knew very well about the literature and that pandemic. So pandemic has created the worst disruptions and that bee wilderness in all the fields, which generates the social order and among the human beings is another valuable resource to understand the human sensitives. And throughout the history, in emergency positions which stimulates writer to create everlasting works during the pandemic literature. So throughout the history, we can see the Black Death of Europe from 1347 to under 1351 during pandemic situations. So it's also the emphasis and that emergency positions which stimulates writer to create the everlasting works. So, writer everlasting works, all the pandemic literatures were focusing pestilence writings in contemporary world and a huge number of innovative technologies and vocabularies and famous literary works were emerged during the pandemic circumstances, right? So it can be utilized, and the literature peoples, we are all the literature peoples, and we know very well how we can enhance our knowledge and how we can improve our literature works. And I also in this pandemic situations, I wrote one poem and as well as write one short story. That short story is also got the Best Writer of the Year award. So this and all, it's how happened. So because of the pandemic situations, because of the lockdown period and the pandemic situations, I enhanced my knowledge in the literature to doing the literature works. In ancient times, human society is also the survived in many moments of disaster and natural calamity. A pandemic in one such natural calamity, and it is not new the history of the mankind. So this is not the new one. So it's already there. We have to take the positive input and positive. Several times, pandemic is referred in many works of the literature, and occasionally that situations also we can utilize, and critical situations. This is the very critical situations given birth to several known works of the literature. So Shakespeare also wrote one novels also in this period, one play drama also in this period, Julius and Caesar, the wonderful play. And that at present when we all the quarantine, so this is the quarantine situations, and the quarantine online tools become we can utilize the online tools and all our companion in terms of the connectivity. So we can use it the laptop, and we can use the gadgets, and we are using the more technologies to enhance our literature knowledge, right? So in these pandemic situations, we use a more technology, and we enhance the knowledge. And as they connect us virtually to each other, we started to learn and earn income to handle the critical situations. So this and all also the impact, and but at the same time there is also the aspect of online exhaustion, which cannot be ignored at all. At the moment, several books becomes good acquaintance, and that stimulates many writers to turn towards the literature. So the literature knowledge and the literature works during the its language creativity happened only in the pandemic, during the pandemic time, right? So literature takes all the human beings is beyond statistical evaluations and that global deaths and degree of spread to show how the crisis has affected. So this all the literature shows the black death and that red death, and that so this and all it's very much shown the degrees of the spread of to show the crisis has affected the individual lives and of infected as well as the friends and their families and the neighbors. So, so many of them is affected by this disease, and that there are many famous books came into existence as a result of the pandemic. So that time it's it's come over the so many books also, and that several such a great literature emerged in the midst of the pandemic. Perhaps the history of the Peloponnesian War by Thucydides in the BC. So, which period it belongs to 460 to 400 BC, and where he refers to the typhoid fever that took over the Athenian army during the war, making them weak. So many books, and that's the Black Death is also happened during the time of all the humanities and the history and that literature in particular offer important insights of the how people have dealt with the trauma of pandemics, how the peoples are affected and how the peoples are showing the emotions, how the peoples are taking part of in the life. So this and all, they also very much think about that. What how the peoples are thinking in the literature, people thinks like that only improvise our knowledge, right? So is it clear? Am I clear? My voice is also audible.
Yes, very much, madam. We are listening you kindly. Go on, please.
Yes, ma'am. Audible, ma'am. Audible, ma'am.
Okay. Okay. So now the Black Death devastated the Asia levels, and that after that the Europe and the North Africa between 1347 and that 1351. So this is the Black Death of Europe from 1347 to 1351 during the pandemic situations, shaping human history of the centuries. For the centuries, group of people throughout Europe lost half their population. So half of the population is there. It's so many of the people is affected by the Black Death, and so many of them died in these situations. And that group of people throughout lost half their populations, right? And it took more than 100 years to recover. So how long it takes the time? It takes the time 100 years. Take the time 100 years to recover. The entire enormous and the natural crisis also prompted and fundamental and the social cultural changes happened during that time. For example, the shortage of the labor and that so many of them it started the writing work and they earned from the writings, right? So novels and that short stories and that they utilize the pandemic situations. And that in 14th century plague pandemic in Europe, which has given this is such a prominence not only in the history of the pandemic but also the history of the literature. So not only the history of the pandemic, it's also the history of the literature. Language creativity happened during this pandemic situation. During the pandemic situations, many scholars believed that the disease instigated among the sailors, and it was spreaded by them all over the continent. There are many paintings. So this and that also the paintings, and also if you are seeing this is also the painting, and that there are many painting illustrated the impact of the disease in various parts of the Europe. The painting works not only the language creativity, the paintings is also they utilize in the literature wise, they also the creativity of the literature, and that painting works is also it's happened. And the Giovanni Boccaccio's a Decameron is a famous works of the literature. Giovanni is the Boccaccio's, the famous works of the literature that has captured the experience of the disaster caused by the disease in the form of the tales. How happened and what happened? What are the exact situations? This and all, it's showing that anything else and all is showing the it's come to our mind and it's come to our face like that. So if you are seeing that literature books, so if you are reading the literature books in this kind of situations, literature books like the Black Death and the Red Death, everything, so it's come to your mind and uh, come to your if you are reading the pandemic literature books. It's telecasting the views and the vision. So it's everything is showing the vision. Okay, and that something is rules to that. Another more reference is that Albert Camus, so very famous author, Albert Camus, The Plague, where he describes the pandemic is something which rules out any future. It's something it's ruled out any future. He describes on terminants of the languages. So terminates of the languages, and after the journeys and the silences and the exchanges of views, so that overall the people, the migrate one place to the another place, and how they expose the talent and how it happens, and that then use the pandemic of the plague as a symbol. Camus made a political statement on the relations of the tormentor and the subjugated. So tormentor and as well as the showing the subjugated. There are also the author's book like a journal of the plague year 1664 by Daniel Defoe. So everyone can know about the Defoe, Daniel Defoe, literature provides us research and insightful record of the event during the pandemic and tries to provide a consideration of the times of the need. Yeah, a comparison, the multidisciplinary investigation of the literature and the social history of the major epidemics when it touches on the themes as the evaluation of the medical therapy and the plague literature and the poverty and the environment and mass hysteria. So, in addition to providing historical perspective on diseases such as the smallpox, cholera, and tuberculosis, so there's so many diseases are happened and so many uh, pandemics, epidemics, and the pandemic situations. Not only the new, it's already there. In this pandemic period of isolations, one turns to the literature and heart, come to terms with the reality and place it in the context of history, right? So, in the isolation period and in the quarantine period, one can turns to the literature and the heart to the come to terms with the reality. So, these are all the reality of life, and these are all the reality of life. The plague. So, see this the writings of pandemic. This is plague. The Albert plague, the Albert Camus, and after that, in the wake of the plague, Frank Herbert, The White Plague. So this is a famous literature works during the pandemic period, and that so this describes a political statement of the relation of tormentor, and that I already said that subjugated. This is also the one of the famous book and the literature works like pandemic. So what are all the literature works of the pandemic? The most famous literature works to come out of the plague is Giovanni's Boccaccio. So this one also I said the Decameron, which is the frame consists of the 100 people quarantine. So where it's Tuscan villa, this 100 people's quarantine in that one villa that it's called the Tuscan villa, and how many days it had? 10 days quarantine. 100 people's. So this one is mentioned in this Decameron book, right? The Tuscan villa, and that over 10 days people stayed there, and that utilize the quarantine period. So next one is the bubonic plague in London, inspired Robinson Crusoe, author Daniel Defoe to write the novel a journal of the plague year set in 1655 and published in 1722, and the last man 1826, and that's Scarlet Plague. So everything is happened, right? So how many literature works and how many it's getting the language creativity, and how many of them it's stored in the language creativity. Right? The Bumani played in London inspired Robin Crusoe of the Daniel Defoe, and this and all the happen. So where we get the references, the plague, a pandemic diseases, where we get the references. elevated references during the pandemic period. Among Indian writers, so nowadays we are using the laptop, nowadays we are using the gadgets a lot. So we know very well about that. And how the peoples on that period, so you have to think about on that period, how the peoples using that to change in the pandemic diseases and among the Indian writers and also the fund. So how it happens. So they can think about and they read the more books and they also start. So pandemic this is during that period among Indian writers. How many of them known the very well about the Indian writers during the pandemic period? They celebrated the Malayalam author and the Academy awardee. You are Anantamurthy Samaskara. So, Anantamurthy Samaskara contains references of the plague as a pandemic where the disease was a symbol of the stagnant orthodox values. So, one of the famous writer in the Indian writers Malayalam, Anantamurthy Samaskara contains the reference of the plague as a pandemic. So immensely, we have a lot of books that emerged during the pandemic situations, and they are armed Ali Twilight in Delhi, 1940. Another novel about the 1919 to flu pandemic. So this one also it's last century flu pandemic. In this case, set in colonial India, Albert Camus' The Plague, 1947, a novel about the plague in French-ruled Algeria. They compare to the French ruled under Algeria and after that World War, right? Often seen as a metaphor for everything, for Nazism to colonialism and the existential crisis of the human spirit. So it's showing the language critic. It's showing the how they utilize the pandemic situations in the literature peoples, right? So it's showing everything. And that essential crisis, so human state, it's showing everything. And that group of the reform school boys sent to the plague and that second during the Second World War, there are so many, not so many, lot of stories is created. And that a classic science fiction novel about medical attempts to compare the pandemic situations. So now also, so next one, pandemic in poetry. So poetry is also as an essential art from help us alleviate our agony during the critical times of pandemic. Art has always been both a mirror of and a form for human experience. So in this quarantine period, and so many of them turned to write the poem, right? And today's morning, also today's evening, one man sent it to me the two poems. So the last lockdown period and what I don't know what I can do it. So I wrote the poem. That one I can send it to you. So you can publish the poem, right? So she asked me, right, to publish the poem. So everyone, the literature people always think about that we can change our life in the pandemic situations, how utilize. If we are using the gadgets and all, and we turned the online platforms and how we can utilize the online platforms, and so everyone can stand in our life using the digital technology and so literature also we can study through the reading through the gadgets. And so many of them publish the poem, and so many of them publish the short stories, and so many of them publish the novels and all. So we can also utilize in these situations. And poetry as an essential art from helps us alleviate our agony during the critical times of the pandemic. Art has always been both a mirror of and a form of your experience through disaster. So that The present poet laureate of the USA, Joy Arya, has also stressed on the positive role of poetry that she believes may help people overcome depression. Right? So, on that period, in this COVID period, and before the pandemic situation, so everyone affected affected by the diseases and what happened. So they read so many books and it gives a positive energy to the people to overcome depression and on the continuation of the creativity in the face of the epidemic. The plague was a global problem for human beings, and as in the case of the COVID 19, plagues abolished social, regional, and that racial differences. So that emergent survival and spread of the outbreak posed a threat to the poetry, while at the same time poetry and the literature and the theatre pandemic served as a place. So many plays are also there, and the communication tools for a place that depicted the societies that were affected the both sensitively and psychologically. So everyone is affected by not only affected by that. Diseases they affected by so they depression they got the depressions and they affected the mentally affected and also the physically and physically also it's affected in the role of the Sophocles Oedipus Rex Christ tell how the plague affected Thebes. The plague thieves at the same time represents for foreshadowing of Oedipus' fate. On the other hand, Shakespeare used here, so this one, we know. Okay, so this one, Shakespeare wrote King Lear during a plague quarantine, right? So Shakespeare wrote King Lear during the plague quarantine and Shakespeare used a plague as a metaphorical concept to emphasize how communicable disease create social and class differences in his plays as such as Romeo and Juliet. So King Lear and the Tempest, many literary works as wedded during pandemic from the past to today, which explores the impact of the pandemic as humanity on humanity and the lifestyle of the people. It's during the literature is reflected only through the literature peoples and that probably many illustrious works were stand still in all the human arts. With the reflection of the diseases during the pandemic period, all the works serve as a resource and that inspiration during this difficult days and remembers the prompt that even the oddest so prompt and that even the oddest times can rapidly and illustrate the triumph of the human spirit. So it's expose its input and its output. It's almost the trims. Actually it's molded to one shape and it's taken the time to difficult days and it remembers the prompt and the face the problem that even the oddest time. So this is a very oddest time and can rapidly and illustrate the triumph of the human spirit. So it's overcome. It's coming out of the human spirit. And that throughout the history, there have been people who have dealt with the crisis that caused untold suffering. Untold suffering. It is hoped. I will briefly explain three highly influential literary works on the pandemics. So, what are they? What are they? Briefly, I will explain the examine the three highly influential literature works on pandemics and what are they. So one is the Daniel Defoe. Daniel Defoe's Journal of the Plague Year, and next one is that Alexandro Manzano's The Death and Albert Camus The Plague to show the striking similarities between the current COVID-19 pandemic and the historical outbreaks of the plagues across time, right? So, what makes pandemic similar across the geographic locations and time is not the presence of the germs and the virus, but that the human response follows the same pattern regardless of culture, and time. According to DEFO, the local authorities in some London neighborhoods tried hard to show the number of plague deaths much lower than the actual numbers by inventing diseases as the recorded cause of death. DEFO tells to Londoners on most aggressive measure taken by the City of London in 1665 by forcing all infected individuals to be locked in their homes with their families even if their family members were not sick. See, everyone closes the door and everyone closes the door and not open and that if no one is in the home also. Right? So COVID-19 in this current situation, the COVID-19 is simply cannot think selfishly only of ourselves, but to ponder out actions with affect others. All the virtues of empathy, love, and solidarity through the writings were against the contagion. If humans are aware of the learned literature in all the moments, they can think smartly about the moment of the crisis. We may be better off. We may be better off. We are not. We are not having that much of the certificate, right? So we may be better off. We may be better off, and we also very much gifted. So very much gifted and. If humans are aware of the learned literature in the moments that they can think smartly about the moment of the crisis, right? So, to overcome the trauma against COVID-19 stood as expected at the top of the list, followed by the infodemic, self isolate, self quarantine, shelter in place, social distancing. The earliest of these, many words are emerged. Many words are creative. So, pestilence borrow from the French and the Latin words, right? Emergence of the new words. So, what are all the words emerged here? So I said the top of the list followed by that so many words like infodemic and that self-isolate and self-quarantine, shelter in place, social distancing, and that any other one. So anyone can tell what are all the words it's creative in this pandemic situations. Anyone can tell the words. Any one word you can say.
Delta variant. Omicron,
Okay.
Delta variant.
Omicron, Delta variant. Okay. And the literature people also know the very well of the language creativity, right? So in this situation, the quarantine has its roots in medieval Europe, where officials in the Venetian controlled port city of the. Thank you, sir. Thank you. You said. Okay. So
Yes, no, all are keenly listening you. They can come and give their opinion and their thought at the end of your lecture. Sure, people will come. Okay.
okay, sir. Okay. Okay. So
Good evening, madam. That was really wonderful presentation, madam. Really.
See, the next one will ready to get clarify certain things.
Yes, absolutely, sir. Absolutely. No, no.
Yes, okay, sir.
That,
Yes,
that
it's
was
not your sound.
yes, sir. Absolutely, sir. That was really wonderful presentation. In fact, very much clear, very much precise, and in fact, there are no doubts also to be asked because each and every sentence was very clear.
thank you,
And
sir.
one
Really,
more
hats
thing,
off, madam. Thank you.
one more
Great
thing,
presentation. Yes, madam.
that what you spoke about does not have a very big stock of literature as reference. So what you compiled, or whatever content you uh, collected, that was very much your own.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. It's everything is my
The
own
references to
content I
this.
created and I collected not any other sources also.
Yes, because otherwise we have some centuries and centuries of literature available to us. But for this particular topic and what you spoke about, there wasn't anything much which you could refer to. You had to do everything on your own. So,
Yes, ma'am.
great effort, ma'am.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Thank you. So now I can continue.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am.
The collection of detail you have compiled, madam, is a really great. See, this is is a need of the hour. You have, told everything is, how do we keep ourselves, within this quarantine period, to refer all the, literature, and you can give all the, all sorts of idea timely. It's a great, madam, great lecture.
Thank you,
Thank
sir.
you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. It's like wonderful. It's a wonderful session, ma'am. Actually,
Thank you,
But
ma'am.
sorry for interruption, ma'am. Ma'am has not yet completed her lecture. She has to continue.
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes,
Okay, madam, you can just
no,
simply, we give our
no,
opinion. That's it.
we are not considering it as concluded. It was an intermission, ma'am.
Yes, intervention. Yes.
Yeah,
Okay.
it was an
Thank you.
intermission. Yeah, we listened.
Yeah.
The
Time
only
and
thing,
again we intervene you because lively. Oh yes, madam. We can.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir. Yes, the now emergence of the new words during this Great Plague and the quarantine too, as its roots in medieval Europe. So, where officials in the Venetian controlled port city of the Ragusa. So now the Druchronic and the Persia passes a law establishing the Trenoto 30-day period of the isolation. Okay, so 30-day period of the isolation for ships later extended to the you guessed that 40 days are quarantined. How the words coined? How the word coined? The first one is that so the word coined right Trentino, Trendino. So and that so they extended the guest later extended to the you guessed it 40 days of the quarantine. So the word coin and the quarantino. So this spelling is QUO and RANTINO. But it was the great plagues of the 17th century that flooded the English language with words to describe the experience of the epidemic disease. So epidemic and the pandemic appeared at this time. So epidemic and the pandemic appeared in this stage in Derbyshire chose to while the heroic population of the Inam campaigned to avoid spreading the disease to the surrounding villages. The more recent SARS epidemic in 2003 gives us the infodemic a portmanteau word. A portmanteau word from information and epidemic which describes the gulf of often unsubstantiated online information relating to a crisis work from home. So nowadays, so everyone saying about that work from home. So this word, it's a portmanteau word from information and epidemic, which describes the gulf of often unsubstantiated online information relating to a crisis. Work from home comes to us a noun in 1995 and a verb in 2001. Social distancing was first used in 1957, though apparently it described an attitude of aloofness rather than an attempt to physically keep a distance from others to avoid information. So when it was coined 1957. And that from the past to today, Literature explores the impact of pandemics on humanity, and doubtlessly many historical landmarks works are produced, and obviously it was favorite works. So obviously it was the favorite works, and hopefully they will serve as a resource and as an inspiration as you negotiate all difficult days with the family and friends. It is also a reminder that even the hardest time can prove the illustrate. So the triumph of the human spirit. This is also the truth of the human spirit. So this is very we have to say past and the today itself also literature expose the impact of the pandemic on humanity. So every time is showing the humanity. Doubtlessly, many historical landmark novels were produced, and obviously, it was the favorite works. They try to produce, and they already produce. And so, these things we say today, which we owe to Shakespeare. So, this and all the Shakespeare's works and famous writing and during the invasion. So, pandemic disease play. Okay. So, emergence of a new word during the COVID-19. This one.
Chronophobia.
COVID. It's a coronavirus is turned the COVID-19. So now you can look at this the COVID divorce and the jumping COVID divorce. So you know this word COVID divorce and the jumping and turbo relationship and quarantines gem virtual happy or Zoom meeting. So nowadays everyone can know about that mom pom being fatigue town, the COVID baby, somania, agitation, cut posters and all. So quarantine and chill, Marania virus, right? Okay. So the next one, emergence of the new word during this COVID situations, COVID-19, here corona cuts, doom scrolling, teen, isodesk, corona bay, infodemic, boomer remover, quarantine, Generation C. So Generation C, it's everyone can know about Generation C, and now we are using the Generation Z, right?
Yes.
So nowadays we are using Generation Z, co-video party. So the impact of the using learning during the COVID-19 pandemic motivates the educator to make use of the new technologies to enhance the teaching learning and overall education of the literature. Right? Pandemic presented the new vocabulary words. It initiates the best practices and empirical research to all. So emergence of the new words again, lockdown, vaccine. So nowadays everyone can using so know about the vaccine, first dose, second dose, and that now the booster dose is
Booster
also
dose.
there.
Booster dose.
Yes, booster dose is also there. So this is the consequence of literature during pandemic. So e-learning later, like that immersive immersive learning, e-stimulation, e-slides. So we are so this also the e-slides and the e-compares and the e-animation, e-activity, e-simulation, e-simulations, cognitive enhancements and the text and text passive learning, active learning, enhanced learning. So impact of corona pandemic, impact of coronial. So this one is the coronial now. So how we can pronounce coronial, and a child conceived as a result of the 2020 and post quarantine and the parents having nothing better to do. So this is the explanation of coronial, the generation coronial. Okay, and how the courses e-content material are available. So we are always utilizing the platform of the e-learning platform, e-literature live. So 24 into 7 for the students, and we are the e-library literature platform. How to design and have some e-learning app, so directions and the interactions and the course content. And nowadays we are also use this digital platform is easy to publish our works, right? Easy to publish our works, right? If you are write the short story, you can publish the through the WordPress. So the WordPress app is also there. So education is also changing for Socratic methods to cyber learning. So this is the Socratic method and how it's turned into the cyber learning. So pandemic summation. So now we can come over to the end of the sessions, right? Finally, for complete unmodified scariness and the pandemic product seems to be the forthcoming trend. So it has this one is a forthcoming trend, and it has been extending the widespread. The online method of learning literature is best suited for everyone because the so many sources are available, and depending on their availability and comfort, many people choose to learn at a convenient time. And that e-learning is not the result of the current situation's crisis due to the outbreak of coronavirus. In most the educational process and advancing towards achieving its goals during COVID-19 pandemic crisis. So this is the better way we have to utilize in this period. Like that, perhaps not surprisingly, one clear global trend during the lockdown was of more people turning to storytelling as a way to connect and cope with the situations, right? So in spring 2020 it starts. We saw a global increase sign-ups from the pre-COVID levels with a jump of more than 50% in April and over yearly March from January to April. So this is the statistical analysis. So this is the statistical analysis how the papers turn how they can the peoples or utilize the platform and how they can enhance the language creativity and how they can start writing the material and the content. So new stories. So how many of them? How many percentages there? 151 percentage new stories in this same period, the number of the new writers increased by the 125 percentage, right? So new writers 125 percentage writer. Activity overall increased by 200 percentage from the January to April. In India, these growth trends mean a 50 percentage increase in the reading time, a 30 percentage increase in the new stories, and a 60 percentage increase in writers. So the worldwide, so this is the pandemic situations and the worldwide pandemic is certainly not the first, nor it will it be the last. So we can. It's hard to beat Edgar Allan Poe's short story, "The Mask of the Red Death," and the such literature edifies about the effect of all the deadly manifestations on humanity life. During the time of the pandemic, all the literary works shows the art of the living through the crisis and the ultimately build a brighter potential for upcoming youngsters. We are changed by the world, by language, and all at once. They too are changed by us and teach a lesson to us. Be healthy and stay safe. All the precious in true sense of the literary works in that pandemic. So is eternal. So now we can fix in a mind. So this is not the first time. The pandemic situation is not the first time, and nor it will be not last. And how people are creating the COVID-19 has created significant concern surrounding the impact of the pandemic. Logo, novelty seeking. So novelty seeking where individuals explore the novel and unfamiliar stimuli and the environment may enhance the creative of the language and the literature. So the human beings viewed as behaving system are quite simple. The apparent complexity of our behavior over time is largely a reflection of the complexity of the environment in which we find ourselves. So this is the time, this is the period. In this periods, we have to know ourselves. We have to and improve ourselves, and we have to enhance our knowledge to expose the talent in this period. This is the right period of the literature papers to enhance the talent creativity. Right? So thank you all of you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for your excellent
Yes, ma'am.
presentation, ma'am. You have received a lot of appreciation in the chat box. Of course, as you tell, during pandemic only quality literature were written, and during the last pandemic only an anthology of beautiful poems were compiled in the name of Singing in the Dark. And of course, it gives solace to the troubled soul during pandemic. Of course,
Yes, ma'am.
we all have become techno savvy due to pandemic only.
Actually, I said no. My one of the colleagues sent it to me the poem today, so that also I can read it to you once again.
Yeah, ma'am, with pleasure.
Yes, she sent it to me the evening. Shutdown, curtain shutdown, transport shutdown, school shutdown, industries shutdown, worldwide all human activities off, in and out officially shut down. That couldn't shut down, which can reach and suck human soul. It sucked lakhs, world stuck, couldn't struggle with it, no burden, borders, no religious, world struck, couldn't struggle with it. It struck lakhs finally. IT can control, but IT's another version started. World ready to struggle. World struck, curtained down. This is also the one of the wonderful poem, and she sent it to me. So she want to publish this poem.
Is now the floor is open for discussion.
Good evening, madam. Shashireka ma'am. Good evening, ma'am. Shashireka ma'am. I don't know. Are you getting my voice?
Ma'am, Satirika ma'am.
I think she disconnected her audio. Right.
That's what I was thinking.
Yes, sir, yes, sir. She has
She herself was muted.
yeah. She has left in one of her device. That's why he could not hear.
Okay. Yeah, she
It's
was
only on screen only. Yeah,
Yes.
presentation screen only now available. Yeah.
Yeah. Good evening, ma'am. Can you hear me?
Ma'am,
She is unable to listen to us.
yes, ma'am. Go ahead, ma'am. Lakshmi Krishna, ma'am. Go ahead, ma'am.
But the presenter is unable to respond to me. I mean, like, as if I say something. Can you hear me? No, she's keeping.
Ma'am, let me send a message in chat box, ma'am.
Sasi ma'am, your voice is not audible.
Yes, ma'am. Now is it clear?
Ma'am?
Hello, good evening, madam.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Good evening. I hope now you can hear us.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Thank you. Good efforts in putting up all the points which are required to speak about the pandemic and the current situation. It's really a great time for all of us to know what is happening. I just wanted to add one simple point here because the history, PMDC or NCBI, the medical history, the medical council, the literature, the reference is all speaking about these epidemics since 1900s, and in
Yes,
terms
ma'am.
of
Yes, ma'am.
plague and they give a different terminology, and finally we have come to a techno term which is called COVID-19 or Omicron or something.
Mm-hmm.
So in one of the literatures that is like Jack London in 1912 itself, he has mentioned the fear of or the contemporary fear. He can say he uses the word worldwide fear of pandemic, which remains alive ever. That means like the pandemic or the infectious diseases is an ancestral fear. It says London's novel is a part of a long literary tradition inviting the reader to reflect on the ancestral fear of humans towards infectious diseases. And of course, it is also in one of the what is that? The verses in Bible. It says the plague has viewed as God's punishment for. I am not sure we are talking here about the punishment or the sin.
Yes, ma'am.
However, the sufferings or the connection between the
See,
happenings that
actually, I want to
around or
put the message
surroundings.
like a positive, ma'am, because
Yeah,
the people
yeah, positive. Of
take it in
course,
the
it is.
positive method, and how they are enhancing the language, and how they can using that language creativity, and how they can utilize in the pandemic situations. So this and all I mentioned. So why the so many people are suffering about this diseases, and so we why we are not taking in the positive way. So always we can think about in the positive way, and we are also using the literature people's it's getting enhanced and utilized in this period. Just I want to convey the message like that.
Yeah. I just wanted to add here. This is my view because basically, whenever we read the literature, we refer to. I'm from the science background, so when I refer to different views, I get that idea. So I just wanted to add there is a relationship between the plague and the infection and the isolation and being
Yes.
inhuman, untouchable, not being contact. All these words are interconnected in terms of literature or English language perspectives. So it's happening. It is an ongoing challenges for us. However, as the time passed, we are learning in different perspective in technological. Earlier, there was no technology, there was this, but there were like many references. Many past references are there. If we go in detail, we get the references even from medical or from other psychiatric
Yes, ma'am. I
literature.
am
It is
using the
well.
so many medical terms and the words.
Yes,
Our literature
there are many
doesn't know
things
about the
available.
medical terms of the words, ma'am. So only few of the words I collected, and so how the well popularly known words only I can use it here, right?
Okay. Yeah, that's great. That's great. That's what I wanted to say because if we go on reading in different subject areas, we will understand. I see. That's why I'm mentioning here. I'm from science background. I'm here to learn, so I got more idea, and that took me over like my past reading. So thank you for your efforts, and I hope it will continue to do some more research in this field. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, Valli, ma'am, is it over?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.
Yes,
Ma'am,
Oh, 1 second.
you have made a wonderful presentation, madam. Very
Thank you, sir.
simple, very concise. Everyone can easily understand you. We understood so many concepts you have provided us. Thank you, great madam. Your service will be need to be continued here. We are
Thank you, sir.
expecting more resource from you, madam, in coming days. Thank you. Thank you,
Thank
ma'am.
you, sir.
Thank you
Thank you,
so much.
sir.
Thank you.
Ma'am, actually, we can see that how many like efforts you have put yourself because everything is your own. So we can see it was a really wonderful and very useful presentation, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, Tarni, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Valli, ma'am. And thank you to
Thank you, ma'am.
Saman
Once
and
again,
sir.
on behalf of Velta team, we thank you
Uh,
for your wonderful presentation. Saranan sir?
Karnani sir want to say something.
Yes, sir. Most welcome.
Very, very informative session, ma'am, and thank you so much. And thank you, Sasi, ma'am, for again. And maybe you could repeat the session sometime on Sunday also. And
question, sir.
Yes, sir. Yes.
yeah, we will have this one more session on the same topic, maybe on Sundays. Maybe this Sunday or next Sunday, I'll let you know, ma'am. Exactly, I'll get in touch with you. Thank you. It
Okay,
was
sir.
really very fabulous and
And
very.
before one day, you can inform me, sir.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, certainly. I will let you know, ma'am. Exactly.
Okay, sir.
Thank you very much, madam. Thank you very much for nice presentation, madam.
And
Thank you,
you
sir.
can see the feeds on the feedback form that is on the chat box, ma'am. People have written wonderful comments, and please check that as well. And very
Good
kind of
evening,
you.
madam.
Say, our Piramangan has come now.
Good evening, sir. Edil sir, and good evening, Sasirekha, madam.
Yes,
Pandemic
sir.
situation, surface reality. So, a very well researched paper. I am referring to your presentation. So, very well researched paper during the days of utmost pandemic situation. So, your paper is very relevant in the present scenario. Wonderful.
Thank you, sir.
Madam, again, I say, wonderful point, madam. Your friend has, given to
My
you
colleague, sir. My
for,
colleague, sir.
yeah,
Not
yeah,
sir,
yeah,
Saman,
yeah.
sir.
Shutdown point is a wonderful point. Thank you,
Yes,
ma'am.
sir.
Thank you. Right, great.
Thank you, sir.
Good evening to Sarvanan sir.
Thank you so much again and again.
Dr. Sarvanan sir, sorry for interruption. My good evening to you and the members of Delta Forum.
Happy evening, sir. Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, sir, I think that it's the suitable time for the next presentation, and he is none other than a very well known scholar, Dr. Charles Joseph sir. So
If
most
there are
welcome, sir.
no other inputs, and we will go with the next presenter. Already our Professor Charles Joseph sir has joined, and I would like to take this opportunity to thank Dr. Professor Sasireka madam for her wonderful presentation, as well as and I will also take this opportunity to extend a hearty welcome to our Professor Charles Joseph sir for this second session of this faculty development program. It is indeed my great honor to present Dr. Professor Charles Joseph sir, head of the Department of English. It's a postgraduate and research department of English, Teresh College, Mysuru, and it's indeed our great honor to welcome you, sir. And Charles Joseph sir is well known to this Welta Forum, and because he has been rendering his services by doing wonderful presentations on comparative literature, and again Canadian literature, and again Dalit literature, and again subaltern literature and all, even postmodern literature. And we are so very happy, Indian writing English also. We are so very happy to welcome you, sir. And Charles Joseph sir is a very seasoned language teacher and trainer, and he has been a resource person on several programs, various conferences and seminars on the faculty development program. It's indeed our honor to welcome you there. And without taking much of his time, and I am handing over the session because if we allow him to speak, he will speak even till early morning. That much is there to share. Such
Sir,
a very
we are expecting, sir.
speaker.
We are
And
expecting that much of
very
endurance.
you are going to witness a wonderful and thunderous and spontaneous session now. Over to you, sir. Hearty welcome, sir, once again on behalf of all the elite and learned colleagues, and also on behalf of Welta Forum. It is my proud privilege to extend a hearty welcome to you, and over to you, sir. Thank you, sir. The floor is yours.
So thank you, Sir Minister, and welcome to you as well. It's nice to listen about myself after a long time in the group, and then I wasn't there for a few lectures for quite some time, so I'm sorry for keeping you all on delay. And then thanks for this opportunity, and it's nice to speak on contemporary Canadian poetry. But there are a few things which I want to say before I begin with this session, and that is there is something which always lurks into me, and that is a teacher should not limit himself or herself to the book or the classroom which we teach or in which we are. But then if we relate ourselves to things outside that, only then you make an attempt at growing, because unlike the most famous term called roots and shadows, there are the more of roots you find, it gives a lot of branches, and the branches give shadows to the others. So people do not see the roots; they only see the shadows. So I hope the roots from which I come, the shadows on which I put on all of you, probably would take you to another level of thinking. So this is one simple thing which I have. To begin with, before I begin, I just have my own premonition about a few things when it comes to Canadian literature, particularly contemporary Canadian literature and poetry in particular. It is said, if you are teaching postmodernism in particular, and if you're reading somebody like Stuart Hall or John Story, or for that matter, Matthew Macon, or for that matter, Alan Payne or Margaret Mitchell, these are theorists on postmodernism. When you're reading them, there's one very prominent question that comes into our minds when you read them, and that is, if you ask a person who's riding a horse, where are you going? The man, if he says saying that I am going to a particular place, means to say that he is, in theory, he is someone who is either a Victorian idea or he is someone who has modernist features. But then if he says saying that I am not riding but I am ridden, it means to say that he is going with the flow of the story, the flow of thought, that justifies the very essence and emergence and identity of stream of consciousness and the double narratives and the triple identity that we have. Now, keeping this mindset of being ridden and riding into the social world that we live in, we are going into a terrain that is unknown. The moment we say Canada, particularly with the present situation that we have, all of us have a Euclidean feature that we have. Unlike the way we say a beautiful idiom, which we call it as the other side of the fence is always green. So you do not know what that place is because you are here. You always make it a point of saying that that place is really nice and good and great, and all the best adjectives will turn into epithets when you speak about Canadian literature or Canada for that matter. But then, what is more prominent for us to understand the place Canada is that it is one of the Commonwealth countries. If you go by the very term called Commonwealth, it was something where during the Civil Wars, England was called Commonwealth because it was the property of all those people who were fighting into the wars, and it did have features with which there were differences, there were identities, there were sociological beings that existed. But if you go by the term and if you analyze it from the post-colonial point of view, The very term called Commonwealth includes countries like India, Africa, Australia, New Zealand, Pakistan, China, and so many others. What is more prominent with us to understand is that Canada was also a colony. It was also colonized. But what is more prominent here when we say the term Commonwealth here is those people or those countries which wrote books in translation in English, or those books which wrote in English, those countries which wrote in English, or those books which bagged prizes, or those books which elevated or leveled themselves up with the English-speaking countries. And we do have Commonwealth prizes which are given for fiction and collective work, particularly short stories. Now, when I say Canadian literature has come a long way, we remember a few people, we remember a few things. Before I go into the very idea of the origin of Canadian poetry, I need to go into the very origin of Canada as a literature, because people made a point of writing, diaries, people wrote letters, people wrote, ideological, stories and things like that. This very place called ideological stories and philosophical, implantations that we have in today's world in Canada describes us into a very thought-provoking book which was written by Margaret Atwood in the year 1961 called Survival: Thematic Guide to Canadian Literature. This book that she wrote, please do make it a point, was a kind of a path-breaking idea because she is an ecosophical writer. She is an environmentalist. She's someone who is basically a feminist, but then she does not acknowledge that she's a feminist. She's someone who deliberates on, who makes it a discourse on the sociological existence of moral relationships in a society of survival. And all these things put together was a novel like Surfacing. You find a complete creamy version of that in Cat's Eye. You find a better enchanted, a better decorated version of it in her novel called The Blind Assassin, and you find a bit more refined version of all those characters that she has written in her last novel, The Handmaid's Tale. Now, if I begin from Margaret Atwood, it is almost like I am going to Kanyakumari and then coming back to, Himalayas. But then, if I'm starting from Mysore and if I go down to Kanyakumari, would it be possible for me to go to Kanyakumari directly, or should I go through a few places which are very prominent, which are scenery worthy or worthy to be seen? Or if I make a point to go right from the top in Himalayas, and then from there, if I really go by the gauging of the amount of water, greenery, keeping that in mind, if I make a point of visiting those places and then percolate it down to Kanyakumari, then I would rather be making it a point of a different visit of the same places with different perspectives. This is one very base with which we make a point of reading contemporary Canadian poetry. We have people like A.J. Klein, E.J. Pratt, Arthur Fry, George Bowering, Nicholas Beattie, and you have quite a few poets, particularly even Margaret Atwood. I don't know whether you people know Margaret Atwood writes short stories. She does write poems as well. And a few, for your kind information, we have people like Michael Ondanje who writes poems. Now, coming to the very question of the way how we find the conceptuality, the idea of poetry which is written there, they basically write in the postmodern narrative. How do we find the postmodern narrative, or how do we justify the very existence of postmodern narrative? Postmodernism is a theory. Postmodernism is a result when modernism was in existence. Let's bear that in mind very clearly. And postmodernism was a result not of the fight or the differences or the unidealistic feature that we had. No, never that. Postmodernism is the result of the kind of wars that we had. To be very particular, unlike the way the world wars had an impact not only on Germany, India, France, Britain, US, and Russia. Similarly, we had an impact of the world wars on Canada as well. Now you should ask me a question. If this country had no population, if the survival in the country was as difficult as being on sun or moon or Mars, if this country had more of ice and less of people, if this country had more of trees and less of more of maples and less of apples, if you say, there is one very beautiful thing that we need to discover in this place is that we have not made a point to speak about the natives of Canada. A similar kind of a comparative element is something that we find it with Australian literature as well, because the very natives, the very aborigines of Canada or the very aborigines of Australia came into the very forum, came into the very idea that they do exist only after 1990. And the poems were, thanks to the University of Mysore, which took attempts to translate these poems into Kannada, into English, into Hindi, into Marathi as well. But then they were literally being like transliterating. They were not translating as it is. Now, when that's the case, there is one very impressive idea which we all read about. Canadian poetry in particular, and that is the way how Margaret Atwood writes. Margaret Atwood writes about the plight of women. I make it very particular to say here again is that it is like she is a very beautiful feature, a very beautiful identity. She's a very beautiful, thought-provoking woman or a writer, as it is. We have a saying in Kannada. I would love to say it in Kannada first and then say it in English. We have a saying which is called Aliya alla Magalganda, which means he is not the son-in-law, but then he is daughter's husband. Margaret Atwood's poems are like that. Why I named it, or why did I put this statement so simple? Why did I put this statement so very impressive as a feature, as impressive into the question here is that we find something very contemporaneity in her work, because she writes about the war victims. She writes about the social pictures. She does write about women who were victims of sociological and political relativity. For example, when you read the poems of her, particularly when you read the poems where there were people who came and captured all those women, and there were women who were pregnant and they were taken there and their legs were tied and the women died just like that. You find a similar kind of narrative with Mahashweta Devi's Mother of 1084. You find a similar kind of narrative with the Australian women writers. For example, very particularly Kate Chopin, for that matter, or for that matter, when you read a Chinese, poetess, for that matter, Sandra Suzar, for that matter, you find a similar kind of poems like that. Or even for that matter, when you read Lisbeth Salander's works, you find a similar kind of thing. Now, the very idea is that who wrote first and who stole from whom? Whose idea was made a point of comparison? Whose idea was narrated from the point of Marxist, was narrated from the point of sociological idea, whose voice was narrated from a differential feature, from a differential sociological being, had its own differences, had its own perspectives, has its own sociological thinking as well. Now, when I go ahead from here, then Margaret Atwood writes, her character is a woman. It need not be the woman that she has seen. Now, you should ask me a question. Can poems have fictional women as well? Yes, certainly you can have poems which are fictional, but then how far do you exaggerate, how far do you elaborate is the point of comparison. That's the reason we call the maple trees always have the maple syrup always does not come from the maple trees, which I certainly feel is copied from that very beautiful idea called the tiger cannot be separated from the tigritude. I hope all of you know from where it is and who said this. So this is what is something that we find more obvious, more resplendent, more contemporaneity, more idealistic when it comes to the question of contemporary Canadian poetry. Now, apart from these, these ideas which she writes, which from the postmodern point of view, of course, you can understand that when it is narrated in a postmodern point of view, it has a jigsawed feature. When you read a writer like her, from there, if you read a writer like A.J.M. Klein, or for that matter, E.J. Pratt, both of them do make a point. One is a Jew, the other one is a Jewish migrant, and the other one is an English migrant. Now, when both of them make a point of writing poetry, they do write from this point of view of displacement. Please understand, a Jew, when he writes about displacement, he is not in his native, so he is finding a nativity, or he is finding the native in the place where he is. But then he is not creating an Israel there. He's not creating an alter Israel there. He's creating an alter Israelite there. This is what is something. This concept called creating the Israel and being the Israelite is another 2-day FDP program talk. I'll deal with that later. Now, when we speak about A.J.M. Klein, his poems have a kind of a philosophical idea. It is almost like reading the book of Psalms in paraphrased verses. In a paraphrased version, or even for that matter, if you're reading the book of Ecclesiastes in the Bible in a paraphrased version, he writes it like that. Why does he write it like that? Because there were the songs. Why he makes it a point to write is that this is a very researched idea, which means to say that one of the most important people that we find into the books that we find here is that the Psalms that were written by David and his son Solomon, they were heard, appreciated, and said like, wow, this is great, by a man, an intellectual man called Ethan. This man called Ethan, he was someone who heard all this and he wrote it down, he documented, and he made it a point to praise that, yes, you have done great things. Here, this A.J.M. Klein, he makes it a point of being like this to the country. He wants the country to be like Ethan, and he being like Solomon, he being like David, makes it a point to read. One very beautiful line which you read it in the poems of A.J.M. Klein is that he writes to say saying that I did not build Jerusalem, I did not build London, I built a place where trees have come first and then the concrete later. Because we all live in a concrete jungle. See the way how he says, we have got the trees first and now the concrete will grow on its own. Which means to say the more of forest that you grow, people will automatically come into that place and it will grow. This line, this concept of afforestation, deforestation, burning the ideas or, getting into the, question of living, the contemporaneity of life, you should read it with George Bowering's poem. One of George Bowering's poems says a very beautiful thing. He writes a very beautiful line like this. He writes it, he says, clean your ears, you can grow cabbage in them. Women who are virgin have children, but the married ones detest from having children. You find a similar sensibility of line in the first book of, in the first section of The Wasteland, Burial of the Dead, when he also writes saying that I gave you a corpse last year to have you buried in. Had the cold winter, the dog disturbed it. As, why do you marry when you do not have children? These are things which are similar. Now you should ask, did Bowering make it a point to write a similar kind of a wasteland there or he's making it a point of, eradicating or bringing it into future, bringing into the very question of the sociological thinking, bringing into the very convention, very continual feature of the. Now, to move from here, we do have people who have made Canadian poetry even more interesting, and that is E.J. Pratt. E.J. Pratt is someone whom I like because he writes on animals, unlike the way we have poems like Hawk Roosting in English. For that matter, you find the swan, the snake, the rat, the alley, the crow, like that, for that matter. Now, when we do read this as a point of view, when we do read this from this perspective, from these ideological thinkings that we have, we do share a very prominent quality. We do share a very prominent convention when it comes to E.J. Pratt, and that is a very emergence of postmodernism in poetry and living as a period started with E.J. Pratt, because he was someone who influenced the very origin of symbolic school of study in Canada. Now, when you find the symbolic school of study there is this question of painting that started. Because he started the painting, the Canadian government made a point of giving the room for migrants and immigrants. It was at that point of time somebody like Ramesh Gunashekara from Sri Lanka, or for that matter, somebody like Michael Ondaatje from Sri Lanka, or for that matter, when you find Carl Phillips from Mauritius, all these people made a point of going and settling in that place. The moment these people went and settled in that place, the very idea of poetry died a slow death. Not that it did, it died and just like that, but then it had poetic features, but then the poetry was already in the form of a concrete prose, so people made it a point of writing it. You find a very beautiful example of that in a novel by Jan Martel called Self. You will find him writing, and that novel is nothing else but the way how exactly you are trying to convene yourself. You're trying to, prosper yourself. You're trying to, identify yourself. You're trying to, relate yourself with those features that we have. Now, when I am, describing these things to you, or when I'm describing these, ideas into this life, into this feature, we also make it a point of describing something very, very, very justifiable into the lecture today, and that is, we are limiting ourselves to contemporary Canadian poetry. Now, when I say contemporary Canadian poetry, it means to say that contemporaneity in poetry is a feature with which how much we are updating ourselves. For example, what Judith Wright writes in her first poem is not what she writes when she writes Woman to Man, or what she writes with her marital poems. So here, there is also this question of gender identity which started. The moment these minority or the minuscule gender qualities emerged and existed, these people stopped writing about nature and they started writing about nature within them. So the nature outside was referred to the nature inside, and it was written. So we are justifying again to what Margaret Atwood had written in her book called A Thematic Guide to Canadian Literature. So here we justify her with the nature, not with a capital N, with a small n, with which you are making it a point of writing the nature with which it was. So you find people, it invited people from Trinidad, from Barbados, from America, from India, from a lot of places. For example, somebody like Jan Martel came to a conference in Shimla. He got an opportunity to state saying that he wants to go to that place, and he did go to Canada, and then he started writing. The Ministry of Art and Culture, made it a point of, establishing him with that view of writing, him with that, personality of writing, and he did make it a point of, publishing his books, and the books that he published was a muscle for the movie industry and the rest of what Life of Pi is, all of us know. So these are things that we do know about how exactly certain things, certain people, certain ideas have been conquering ourselves, conquering the very, very, very juncture of its existence. Now, moving ahead from this, we do find the poems of somebody like George Bowering. George Bowering is again another very famous Canadian poet. His poetry, to be very specific to you, is something which looks more like a prose and less like a poem. He writes about alphabet. He writes about different kinds of being. He writes about different sociological thinking. He writes about different people and idealistic world. And he also writes about the way how people make it a point of, writing the very question of, lifestyle, writing the very question of philosophical feature that we have. Some of the poems that if you observe, which he has written is like Sticks and Stones, or Points on the Grind, or The Gangs of Cosmos, and one of the things which is my very favorite one is The Man in Yellow Boots. We should make it a point to read that because it does make it a point of being into something which is very very different from the others who write poems. I vaguely remember a few lines of his poems called on Quadra Island. One of the lines that he reads is, I would just like to quote a few lines which I vaguely remember. It says like this: 2 buildings, one on a float house and an empty office. You attest that the bay was ringed with houses, where 2 children are there with all crazed and loggered head. Now, what they mean by this is there are 2 children. One is you have to take care of yourself, the child inside you and the child outside you. The reason why he says like the child inside you and the child outside you is because he makes it a point to write about how exactly he is making it an identity of his poems. Particularly when it comes to the question of the poems like Grandfather, for that matter, or for that matter when he writes his the poems which when he speaks about the Quebec, or for that matter when he speaks about the Toronto features, or for that matter when he speaks about the Canadian lifestyle that we have, or his very famous poem called News. This news is similar to that of the way how we have a very famous one, unlike the way we have this very famous telephone conversation. This poem is as similar as that. So here he is making it a point of saying that the American mud is cured on a Canadian land, but then are the soldiers soiled? See the kind of fun in the word. He says, are the soldiers soiled? Which means to say, did they come here to rape these women and go by which their culture is into us? The very question they don't like Americans is because Americans always feel that they are not part of the world. So it's because of that reason he makes it a point to say saying that, is this the news that we have that we are soiled? And we get this news in a soiled newspaper. So he actually says that our culture is strongly demoted. Please understand, George Bowring is the only one among the Canadian poets who writes saying that our culture is destroyed. But then when you read the poems of Nicholas B.P., for that matter, when you read Brushfire for that matter, or when you read any Canadian poet for that matter, or novelist for that matter, you will never find anybody saying that the Canadian culture is destroyed, though they are, the first generation or the second generation natives. For example, when you read a novel like Green Library, or for that matter, when you read a novel like God is Not a Fish Inspector, for that matter, you will never find these kinds of things which gave the very question of hybridity. Now, this concept of hybridity that he speaks about, or this concept of hybrid identity that he speaks about, he is also speaking about another very important question called taking measures. I should say this to you. You have a very famous book by Fred Waugh called Diamond Grill. Diamond Grill is a very famous book. It's a very famous novel. It is written in the serial form, and the novel is almost like one page of each chapter. Each chapter is just one page in that book. What is more beautiful about that book is that it is a combination of different people, and different people are living together because they have to survive. And all people of different countries, it is like an Italian father marrying a Chinese girl, a Chinese man marrying an Italian girl, and they have two kids where one is brought up in Singapore and the other one is brought up in, Ukraine. And both of them make a point, all the four of them come together, where the girl marries a Canadian who's a French man, and they start a hotel called, the Diamond Grill. All of them, because they are brought up in different kind of things, they want to put one feature of their country into it, into the dish that they have. So as all of us know, the grill that we have is either square or horizontal or vertical. Why should the grill be diamond as a point? The very reason they make it a point to saying that the grills are diamond in shape, because they wanted to make it a point to state that all these countries, if you straight or if you take a scale and draw lines, particularly from Ukraine to to Singapore, to China, to Canada, to Australia, or for any country for that matter, there is the shape of a diamond that comes there. So they want to put this question of diamond. Now, this question is the most relative of the ideas that you have. For example, when you read an incident from the Oscar-winning Michael Ondaatje's novel called The English Patient, you will find this nurse who has this English patient whom she is taking care. There is this thief also who comes called David Caravaggio, and Jim is the one who is there on the bed, and he cannot speak because he speaks only in English, so he is named as English patient. She wants to go to the first floor